At some point in our lives, we have to realize that we have conditioned our brain to be something that it's not meant to be. That we're not letting it grow. We're not letting it flourish. It's just stuck in this rut and routine of the thing that it shouldn't be. And this is the only way you break out of it. The only way you break out of the thing that has forced you to feel bad and hate yourself is following and breaking down and rewiring the literal aspect of your brain. So the reality is that for a lot of us, our brains are wired to be against us. Like it naturally, your brain has this bias where it tries to keep you alive. Like it's thinking that everything is bad, that everything is dangerous. It's like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Like everything is a bad thing, and it sees that and it looks for that and it creates this anxiousness in us. But there is a scientifically proven way to rewire that. There are many ways, but I'm gonna focus on 4 specific ones that are all over the internet. I just compiled them together. This is the reality that you have the ability to rewire your brain, to change something that's called neuroplasticity. It's the way that your brain responds and acts and does all these things, and it's actually inherently normal for you to want to feel anxious, for you to feel like things aren't right, because it's trying to keep you alive. But you can actually create something in you that gives you this confidence to be able to respond and to speak and to be as happy and joyful as you can be. For a lot of us, we've created this bias in our brain that doesn't allow us to ever actually move on. So I want to focus on that. I want to see what these 4 steps are, and I'm going to base them again on science, because this is the whole point, that if we're going to create the best version of ourselves, it has to start from internally. And there's faith and there's philosophy and there's all these other things, but there's the most basic and intrinsic part of all this, the most natural one to us, is our own ability. It's our brain, it's our heart, it's our minds, the way we think and act, because we've been conditioned to think of the worst. So just this reality that you have this neuroplasticity, your brain, every time you learn something new, and neuroplasticity is what it is, right? It's neural pathways that when you study something, or when you learn something, when you create a new muscle, or when you learn a new task or ability, your brain physically rewires itself. And that could actually be painful in some instances, right? Your brain, not necessarily you're going to feel all the nerve endings in your brain moving around and electrons connecting and sparks, so maybe you're not going to feel that specifically, but the new habits and new patterns that you breed are going to feel painful. They're going to feel laborsome. That's why for a lot of us, we don't create anything new. We don't change. We don't build any different habits. We don't change our lifestyle because we haven't focused on that. And I think this has, for me personally, has been one of the greatest things that I've been able to actually learn and research, because it's changed the way I've been doing things. And slowly but surely, right? It's not an overnight miracle, but it's something that in a few days, in a few weeks, in a few months makes a total difference in your life. So neuroplasticity is something new that's being created in your mind, to make it simple, to make it as basic as it can be. Your brain is creating something new. And here's the thing, sometimes you're going to have to destroy something that's already cemented in there. It's like building a new room or expanding a room. You're going to have to break down a couple walls so that there could be this beauty and this openness in that room. Your mind is like that room. Your brain is like that room, that if you do not break these things, they're just going to stay there because they've been there for so long. So there's 4 simple steps, and it's insanely simple, but that's the hard part in it. Even though it's simple, and most of us probably know some of these things, and I'm going to explain a little more in how to actually do it and what's the science behind it. But even though it's simple, it doesn't mean that it's easy. Some people confuse simplicity with something that's easy, because you hear the word simple. It's something that you have to repeat and consistently live in until your brain builds those pathways, until it is natural. So it's something you repeat until it naturally flows from you. And it's like anything in your life, getting over something, right? It's gonna be difficult in the beginning. It's gonna be the hard part of you doing this thing. You're gonna consistently want to feel the way you felt. You're gonna consistently want to do the thing you did because you were doing it for so long that it's natural to your body. You're going to have to go against these things. So I'm going to focus on these 4 points I think are so vital and so important for us to actually build neuroplasticity in a good way, to destroy the things that we've built habit and actually produce confidence in us and rewire our brains to allow ourselves to love ourselves. The first one, I want to focus it on Dr. Kristen Neff, who she had a study on self-compassion. And that's a big one, to love yourself, to have compassion for you. Because what happens is that for a lot of us, we do something bad and we are the first enemy in our mind. We're the first ones that attack ourselves. We oversaturate our brain with how bad we were and how big the mistake was and how terrible it was. And all you are ever going to think and be is that mistake. You're going to constantly think that that's you, that's who you are. When you learn self-compassion, it's not that you don't take accountability for the things you've done wrong. I want to be clear with that. You are accountable for your mistakes. You know that, and that's actually a superpower in itself, accountability. Why? Because you cannot change something that you are not accountable for. If you know you messed up, that you did something wrong, and you are accountable for that thing, that is a superpower. You will change your whole life because accountability means change. You are accountable for this. So now you know what was wrong, and now you know what you could do right. Self-compassion is knowing that you made a mistake, and knowing that it was a terrible thing, but you're not going to demean yourself because of that thing. Like, it doesn't become your character. It doesn't become just who you are. And in this study, Dr. Neff shows that people who have self-compassion have higher levels of self-compassion, are associated with life satisfaction. They have higher learning goals. They have emotional intelligence. They have optimism. They're positive. They have positive effects in their life. Anything that you could think that is good is associated with having self-compassion. These people that she did her studies with are all people that might have had different issues in their life, but were able to be compassionate over themselves. It's easy to look at people that make mistakes and want to help them and want to tell them, listen, it's okay, things happen, life happens, but we never do that with ourselves. We're so quick to sit here, and rightfully so, because you should hold yourself to a higher standard, but you should also love yourself at a higher level. It shouldn't just be, well, I'm this person and I need to do everything perfectly, because you're not. You would never do everything perfectly, but you need to understand that there is an aspect of you that needs to love you too. Compassion for yourself is literally that, right? It's being able to give yourself space to mess up and improve. And tied tightly with that, right? Compassion, self-compassion, is accountability. Is knowing that if I messed up, I'm giving myself enough space, enough grace to do something right. Sometimes we think that we are the problems that we've lived in. We think that we are that thing that we did. When you have self-compassion for yourself, it allows you to not identify with the problem, but identify with you as the person. Not identify with what you did or what happened, but identify with the love that you deserve. Identify with what you actually are and not what you did in that moment. You need to have compassion for yourself. I'm not saying to not take accountability. I'm not saying to not sit here and say, okay, I messed up in this place, to not identify the problem. I'm saying to not become the problem. That is not who you are. And when we have self-compassion, we allow ourselves to actually flourish and grow. We allow our brain to not sit and fester in something bad, but to actually have the space to move. When there's this comparison of self-compassion, people that don't have it, they tend to live in this fight or flight. So in fight or flight, your cortisol levels are raised. That's the stressor hormone in your body. And people who often live in that chemical is significantly higher in them, which actually induces anxiety. Anxiety is not by terms a bad thing. Like, anxiety, typically what it's meant to be is that fight or flight, that a level of understanding that something is wrong, and if I do not get out of this area, something might happen to me, which is part of our human experience. People that lack self-compassion are often living in this anxiety level. It's raised and not in a positive way. They haven't been able to use the anxiousness to something good, but rather it's used them to survive. So we need to be able to love ourselves fully and completely and not loiter over our problems. Number 2, affirmations. And this is a big one, because sometimes we think that affirmations are spiritual, and they're not. There's a lot of data and science, specifically from where we took our information from Psychology Today, which has a report of over 40 years of data showing different ways of affirmation, different things that affirmation has produced positively. For some reason, we've fallen into this culture. We think affirmations are something spiritual. And if you repeat something that you're speaking into existence, I'm not here to bash anyone's belief or understandings of that nature, but I do want to tie one thing into this, that it's not necessarily spiritual. It's actually chemical. Your brain, again, is being rewired. That neuroplasticity, the things that you are saying constantly, is a thing that you are actually believing. And this is that whole saying, right? You are your own biggest enemy. Like, you are spending more time with you than anyone else in this world. So what you're going to do, what you're going to constantly say, whether it's good or bad, you're going to believe. If you constantly tell yourself how bad you are, how much of a waste of space you are, how terrible you are, at some point your brain's going to say, oh, wait, no, this is who we are. I heard that so many times. It must be my name. This must be my identity. Positive affirmations have been proven literally over 40 years of studies to show that people have created a more purposeful life. They've created a better social interactions with others and created a sense of self-worth, just to name a few of them, because they have been able to identify themselves as to what they desire to be and not what they're in. If you wake up every day and go to bed every night and tell yourself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this complete, even if you don't do it, even if you don't get it done during the day, but you consistently come back to that, at some point, what's going to happen is that your brain is going to be rewired and say, wait, no, we keep saying this. We keep repeating this. I hear this all the time. This must be who I am. This must be what I'm going to do. This must be the thing that I'm supposed to wake up and add to my calendar tomorrow. You have to speak positively to yourself. We live in a world which constantly speaking negatively to us, and if we sit there and absorb that and it ties into self-compassion, we become that thing, right? We allow ourselves to be so over-inundated by all this bad that we don't realize that we were made for something good. How do you speak to yourself? Self-affirmation is a huge one, and at the end of the day, it's not the world against you, it's you against you. Your brain is going to be rewired in the way that you speak to it. Number 3, you have to do the uncomfortable thing. And this is hard. And it's, again, a person that's been working at it myself, is doing the things that I know are going to benefit me and serve me, but that are uncomfortable to do. Waking up at 5:30 in the morning might not be for everybody, but if you know that you are absolutely lazy and you know that you struggle with a lot of things and you procrastinate like no other, you need the extra time, but 2, you need the thing that's going to be really hard for you to do, that's going to ingrain and build a new structure in you. It becomes easy to do, and then you have to take the next step of the hard thing to do, because again, you have rewired your brain to think that this is a normal, common thing, and it's easy for me to repeat this. You have to do the uncomfortable thing until it becomes a natural thing. You have to repeat the thing that is difficult when you do not want to, because again, that's the difference between discipline and desire. You might want something, but discipline is going to be against even the moment that you do not want it in. You might want the bigger picture, but discipline is going to change that moment into the thing that's going to create that bigger picture. Do the uncomfortable thing, whatever that thing is. If it's eating healthy, I'm trying. It's going to the gym, I'm working on it. If it's doing the taxes or paying these fees or doing the job, whatever the thing is that it's uncomfortable and difficult for you to do, make the effort. Try. And 4, it's allow yourself to sit in silence with yourself. And this one, it sounds almost basic, but it's probably the best point in this entire collection. Science has proven that silence is actually healthy for us, that the parts of our brains that are constantly active and over anxious, and of course our wonderful world of technology, which is kind of ironic because I'm saying this through something that you're watching on a screen. The truth is that it has created such a disbalance in us that our hormones are all over the place, where we don't allow ourselves any time of freedom or moments with us. So we're afraid of our silence. You need to find time to just sit and be present. And this is something that throughout many faiths has been discovered, right? There's the sense of euphoria when you understand that you are openly you and free to be you in moments with yourself. No distractions, no books, no TVs, no screens. Take 15 to 20 minutes and just sit in silence. Just sit in that moment and allow yourself to be present. Too many of us have been conditioned by life, by our rewiring of our brain, that we need to be doing something, that we need to have our phone in our hand, that we need to be creating this, that we need to be doing this job, that we need the next thing. And it doesn't allow us to just live, to just breathe, to just be present. Allowing yourself time to just be present to you is going to change the way you perceive yourself. It's going to change the way you see things. Put a timer. Put your phone on, put it across the room, leave a timer, mute everything, airplane mode, whatever you need, and just let the time run and be present. And you don't have to start with like an insurmountable time right away. You can start with a couple of minutes of just you time and make that something that's part of your regular practice. So how do you speak to yourself, how you love yourself, how you spend time with yourself, and the uncomfortable thing you do. These are the things that are going to change the way your brain works. They're going to rewire your brain. And again, like I said in the very beginning, extremely simple things to do, things that most of us have probably heard throughout our lives, or if we haven't heard before, we'll hear at some point, things that aren't complex in us, but yet are really hard to actually implement. They're simple, but they're not easy. You need these things. At some point in our lives, we have to realize that we have conditioned our brain to be something that it's not meant to be. That we're not letting it grow. We're not letting it flourish. It's just stuck in this rut and routine of the thing that it shouldn't be. And this is the only way you break out of it. The only way you break out of the thing that has forced you to feel bad and hate yourself is following and breaking down and rewiring the literal aspect of your brain until you're the most joyful you. You were made to be full. And the world has robbed us of that. So steal it back.